gassing out all the time on the mats is so embarrassing. You know, your training partners are sat there watching you on the side of the mats. We call it the cook wall. They know you're doing it. As much as you think that you just disappear off to the toilets, they know that you're not there. And they know it happens more than once a week. Right? It's not a cardio problem. It's a lot more of a deeper issue than just cardio, right? Because jiu-jitsu is actually providing you with a lot of cardiovascular training. So how could it possibly be your cardiovascular system is lacking? Right. What I'm going to be covering today is the mindset that surrounds people that struggle with these issues. The output and the input requirements of jiu-jitsu, and how to improve general capacity, right? The reason I'm going to be talking about this is because I have trained thousands of elite soldiers, I've trained hundreds of grapplers, and I'm a purple belt myself. I fully understand grappling. So I have a unique take on all of these matters, maybe a take that your jiu-jitsu coach might not be able to provide, right? So I come at it from a different angle. So hopefully you appreciate that insight, and let's get cracking straight into arguably the most important part. On this channel, if you're a regular viewer, you will have heard the analogy, the 1.0 grappler, the creature that lives in survival mode in our brains, right? It's not you. I'm not saying this to you. Basically, the person that is soft in body, soft in mind. This is when you look at yourself in the mirror and you actually look at your beliefs, how you think and how you problem solve every single day. This is what the 1.0 grappler does. Unfortunately, for a lot of men, they let this creature, the survival part of the brain, dictate how they think, problem solve and live every single day, which results in them making excuses for anything physical off the mats. Love comfort, hate physical stress, hate, anything that will cause their body a little bit of pain, even if they know that that thing will make them stronger, fitter, a better man. They love high dopamine, whether that is high dopamine ultra-processed foods that give instant, like crack cocaine type of responses, ice cream, croissants, cakes, biscuits, energy drinks, fizzy drinks that have got like loads of sugar in, just pure crack cocaine. Foods that benefit feelings, not performance. And even so, they are repulsed by the idea of thinking about performance. If this person was to look in the mirror and say the words, "I am an athlete," they would be ashamed to even say those words. That's how much the creature has infected the brain at this point. The good thing is, it's a few simple reframes and you're back on the straight and narrow. No personal standards. They live by other people's personal standards. This basically means that they are yes men. Whatever the missus wants, they get. Whatever the kids want, they get. There is no personal standards, and they believe that instead of being a good role model and being an example for physical health and training, they just give people stuff and hope that that fills that void. When really what happens is they're looking at you out of shape and they're thinking, well, okay, it's all right for me to be out of shape as well. And all of these beliefs as well, excuses. They're going to start making excuses. They're going to start loving high dopamine foods and drinks and playing online games and drinking alcohol and smoking. They're going to love all that stuff. You do it. Doesn't look to the future with confidence. Looks to the future, yeah. They fully believe that they are on a decline and it's inevitable and their life is going to get worse every single day from this point forward. How they feel, how they perform is going to just keep getting worse and there's nothing that they can do about it. Fixed mindset, reactive mindset. They only do jiu-jitsu as their physical training and they make excuses for anything else and they've got no respect for themselves. right? You might take these personally, but just remember, this is a part of your brain that has just been built over the last year, decades, multiple decades, from who you surround yourself with, your family's opinions, and it just ends up getting into your brain, and the things you do every day is just resulted in this happening, right? And all it is a creature is dictating your life, right? The survival part of your brain is dictating how you live your life, how you think, how you problem solve. And if you are repulsed by the idea of calling yourself an athlete, if you are repulsed by looking at the future with optimism and confidence, if you are repulsed by any of these, you have been fully infected by the creature 1.0 grappler mindset, right? The elite 2.0 mindset, the reframes, is somebody that sees that there is really no excuses. They look in the mirror and look into their soul and enjoy it. They don't run away from problems. They just see them as challenges to overcome and actually relish the fact that that's a learning opportunity to develop their character. They have strong personal standards, which transcends into those around them. You know, you have strong personal standards. You're a role model for everybody else in your life, right? They will start to also have strong personal standards and not weak ones. Look forward with optimism and confidence. They believe that no matter how old they are, there is still great days, many great days ahead, physical great days where they can do whatever they want. They can continue to improve their strength, performance, energy levels, recovery rates, how they look aesthetically. They take ownership and full accountability over their results and how they feel. Clear difference. They don't just do jiu-jitsu because they know jiu-jitsu is an absolute destroys the body. So they need to fill and counteract some of the demands of jiu-jitsu off the mats as well. And they have a lot of respect for themselves. Remember, right, it's a lot to think about there, but the reality of the situation is it's just how you think, you know, and if you can live by that for 24 hours, that creature, the voice starts to get a little bit weaker, a little bit more quiet. It's always there. Listen, I'm here, but I always think like this person as well. It's part of your brain. It's part of who you are. The only choice you have as a logical masculine man is whether you choose to listen to this shit. Doesn't matter how good your training is. It doesn't matter how good your nutrition is. It doesn't matter how much you meditate or how many ice baths you have or anything like that. If you fundamentally believe that you are a creature and you are doing the 1.0 beliefs, not having any personal standards or self-respect, constantly saying yes to everybody, it doesn't matter how good your coach is, how much you spend on a personal trainer, how everything. You could be doing the best things. As soon as you stop doing them things, you're going to slingshot back to the creature again because you haven't upgraded your character. So important, right? And like I said earlier on, right? The beauty of this is just your beliefs. It's what you think, what you tell yourself every day. What you tell yourself is okay and what you tell yourself is not okay. Right. Now that I've just absolutely destroyed your soul and give you something clearly to think about. If you enjoyed that, by the way, like and subscribe to this channel because this is what I do every single day. Every single day I'm talking about this stuff. It's fucking unbelievable. I love doing it. Right. From a logical standpoint, the output requirements of jiu-jitsu, right? The gentle art, problem solving. It's like chess with your body. Whatever you want to call it, right? The output requirements, it's an aerobic sport, so predominantly we're using oxygen and a little bit of carbohydrates for energy. We sweat a lot, right? There is cardiovascular, there's raises and lowering of the cardiovascular system. There is a little bit of stress on the muscles. However, if you don't have any strength, there is an absolute lot of stress on the muscles and joints. So oxygen and carbs is generally the output. This is the input requirement, right? Oxygen and carbs, and obviously hydration as well. So water, the reason we sweat loads is just the waste products of the carbohydrate. This is what's going on. The carbohydrates, we sweat, we need to replenish the sweat as well. So Another thing with jiu-jitsu, right? When you start to get into the nitty-gritty, it just you end up entering a rabbit hole, right? So you've got the preferred side, you've got left. I prefer to pass on my left. I prefer to pass on my right. I prefer to pin with my left arm, cross face, not my right. I prefer to underhook on one side. I prefer to retain guard on one side. I prefer to invert on one side. There's just so many imbalances, so many complexities, not even worth thinking about that. But I see, and this is brutal by the way, I see too many men on the mat trying to train each side equally and basically diminishing the flame of jiu-jitsu because they can't be fucking arsed to do the work off the mat, to allow that flame to run like a furnace every time they step on the mats. The flame will diminish and you will have to do something about it. Too many people will be like, oh, I'm training smart, I'm going to have rest rounds, I'm going to train each side perfectly equal, I'm not going to spar. The flame, you will fall out of love with jiu-jitsu if that's the way you want to do business, right? Hopefully not when you watch videos like this on my channel. Right. There's not much, as much as people may think, there's not much of a strength requirement for jiu-jitsu in any given session or any given competition. However, strength requirement is massive for your longevity in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, you need strength to build your jiu-jitsu armor. Like, there is, think about a medieval combatant. You've got one that is 50-year-old, that is frail and old with a sword, and you've got one that's just an absolute knight with a massive set of armor. How much more robust to the demands of a fucking fight is the one with armor going to be versus the frail, weak as piss old man? I know that's a metaphorically speaking, but it's just reality. You can choose to put muscle and armor on your body by going to the gym and lifting weights properly. There's plenty of videos on my channel regarding this. So, it's as much of it's not actually a requirement for movement and technique. I don't think if your game is ridiculously stand-up based, then of course there's more of a strength requirement. However, to the typical demands of jiu-jitsu, right, training, strength is so important for your longevity within Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? However, when you've got someone that's an equal technical ability to you, an equal belt, an equal experience, you have strength, you're going to absolutely demoralize them. You're going to make them gas out quickly, like people are making you gas out quickly because you're weak as piss. So we talked about the output requirements. The specificity is not even worth thinking about. So don't try and do specific movements for jiu-jitsu. Just talk about it, right? So don't think about improving your cardiovascular system because your gassing out is not a cardiovascular system problem. It's because your body is absolutely in fight or flight when low-level demands are going through your body, like a little bit of technique and a little bit of sparring, your body's having a meltdown. That's not a cardiovascular problem, big lad. Because think about it, if you're going high heart rate in sparring, you know your jiu-jitsu coach will say, chill out, mate. Too much hormones. Relax. Obviously, that's pretty hard to do when the stress of jiu-jitsu has got you by the balls. That's not a me problem, by the way. That's a jiu-jitsu coach's problem. But what I'm telling you is what you can do is you can increase your capacity as a man. Increase your work capacity. The amount of work in which you can do, you can increase. You can improve your capacity instead of letting your capacity just narrow into a little shot glass. Because the less your capacity is, everything becomes hard. Yeah? So, that's what I'm saying. It's a capacity problem. You're having a meltdown at a sport which is called the gentle art. It's a capacity problem, not a cardiovascular problem. Cardiovascular training is just one strand of the capacity bubble. However, I'm going to give you an answer in which is way better than cardiovascular training for this regard. Because, let's be honest, if you're fucking gassing out on the mats, then cardiovascular training is actually happening to a high standard on the mat. Not necessarily to a high standard, but probably to a high intensity. So cardiovascular training we can happily rule out as not being the deficit because you're doing it. You're doing it. So the solution, as you increase your strength, the thing, whether that's jiu-jitsu, whether that's hiking, whether that is playing with your kids. As you improve your strength, the thing, X, let's just call it X, becomes less demanding. The demands become less. As you increase your capacity, the demand, the previous demand is less on your body. Can't explain that in a more simple manner, and it's so important. If you're weak, option A, right? Awful option. If you are weak and improve your cardio, you're still going to be in survival mode because X is still massively detrimental to your body. Like the perceived demand is so high because you're weak as piss. However, the more you get stronger, the perceived demand is less and 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 less, till the thing X becomes ridiculously easy. Like how important, it's so important this. Because the last thing, right, is having a body, the last thing you want is having a body that works so hard to do basic shit. It's a capacity problem. We want to reduce the effects of the demands. And if anything, increase the amount of stuff that we can do as a man. We've still got a lot of life to live. And the demands, what I'm saying is the effects of the demands is cardio. There's one, right? Joint fatigue, joint soreness, sore muscles, all the same stuff. Capacity problem, injuries, capacity problem. You know, for example, a knee injury. Well, I can't do a lunge anymore because it hurts 9 out of 10 pain. Okay, so what can we do? We need to improve the capacity of the knee joint. Our work capacity, our ability to do more stuff with the knee. Capacity problems, the same stuff. I end up working with a lot of guys with injuries. And it's the same problem. It's a capacity problem. Doesn't make a difference if they're not injured, if they are injured. It's the same solution. Right, that's it from me, gentlemen. Hopefully you appreciate it. Look, if any of this stuff hit home, especially, you know, that you recognised some of this 1.0 mindset stuff that is currently running your life, it's not a bad thing. The most important thing is that you now have that awareness. You have now identified that within yourself. That's the first step. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we do first on our program because it's arguably the most important part. We don't start with reps and sets and meal plans and counting calories and all that stuff. We start with character and mindset. Then we can slot in everything else afterwards. That's the best way to do business. That's the best way to get the best results. So essentially, it's me and you building the 2.0 version of yourself before we even do one training session. If that's something that you're interested in, the link is in the description of this video to book onto a call. We'll have a chat, see if you are a good fit. No pressure, but it'd just be great to talk.